Well, good morning again, everyone. It's that was Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. I want to start by saying I have two stories for you today. They're going to seem totally unrelated, but you're going to have to bear with me. This was The Empire Strikes Back. It was the second Star Wars movie, which is really the fifth Star Wars movie. And if you need an explanation for that, see me after church. Okay, and I have a confession to make. The first Star Wars movie, which is the fourth Star Wars movie, see me after church. I saw it. I'm not proud of this. I saw it 19 times. Okay, and of course, you might ask who went with you 19 times, and I will tell you most of the time I went by myself for two reasons. Because the two friends I had already seen it. And the other reason is that my son-in-law, Cal, who is even nerdier than I am, wasn't born yet. So I went by myself. And what's really strange is when I got there, I sat in the same seat every time. And there were people who were by themselves in the movie theater. And we started striking up friendships because they were seeing it a bunch of times as well. So that scene is a scene where Luke Skywalker, he's one of the main characters. He has come to the Dagobah system looking for a Jedi master by the name of Yoda. And he has crashed his spacecraft into this swamp, and now here he's met this little creature who is kind of buffoonish looking and kind of buffoonish acting, and he's so interested in rummaging through Luke's stuff and eating Luke's food, and he's got this little flashlight. He's more interested in the flashlight than he is being a guardian of the galaxy, and it's Yoda. And Luke doesn't see it. He just looks right past Yoda. Because you see, that's the way the world is, right? The most powerful experiences in life come to us in the smallest and most insignificant ways. So much so that if we're not careful, we'll miss them. A couple weeks ago, Jill and John and Joan and Jane and Kent, that's Joan's twin sister, we went up to Lake Superior. We spent a few days up on the North Shore, one of our favorite places, Grand Marais. And first night we're there, I insisted, and everybody was kind of in agreement that we were going to go out to Paradise Beach, which is this pebble beach on Lake Superior. And it's right along Highway 61, but there's this buffer of trees in between. So you really feel like you're all alone. And so, now mind you, there's nothing out there except a pebble beach. And we did bring lawn chairs with us. And so we went and we grabbed some smoked trout and some crackers and some cheese, had a bottle of wine, all that sort of stuff. We went out to this place. We parked our cars. We went back in the woods, and we found all this brush and downed trees, and we built a bonfire on the beach. And Jill and Jane and Joan set up our spread on a driftwood log. I have pictures. I didn't get a chance to put those up. And then we sat there and watched the fire and watched the sun go down. All right? And pretty soon the wind stills. So there is no wind at all. The water is just lapping up. Imagine that, Lake Superior, mean, angry Lake Superior. Water's just lapping up on the edges. And the sun goes down. And evening gives way to night. And there's this cloud cover. And so when darkness finally settles in, it's so dark you lose the lake. And every once in a while you'll hear a truck or a car go by on 61, but then it was gone and there are no lights at all except for our fire. And then pretty soon the clouds rolled away off to the east. And the sky exploded in stars. I was kind of hoping this was happening. I hadn't seen it in years. But you could see from west to east, you could see the Milky Way, this strip, go over the top of us. And it was sparkling, and it was bright. And it's so stunning that it's been a few years since I've seen it that vividly. I had forgotten just how spectacular it was. So much so that I decided to take a walk down the beach by myself because I wanted to get away from the campfire. And I wanted to see it with absolutely no lights at all. Now, here's the thing. Had we stayed in Grand Marais, where all the action was, and maybe created a little bonfire on the shore there, we would have missed it. Wouldn't have seen a bit of it with all the lights and everything else that's going on. The most magnificent experiences in life are so small that if you don't stop and notice, you'll miss them. And I will tell you that that's God's MO as well. That's how he does business. And I know everybody has this idea that in the Bible that God is coming in fire and smoke and lightning bolts all over the place. And yeah, he does that from time to time. But his most powerful revelations come in these incredibly small ways. Case in point, there's a story, and I know this is a little off track, but hang with me. There's a story in the first book of the Kings. And it's a story about the prophet Elijah. And Elijah is being chased by Queen Jezebel and her soldiers. Queen Jezebel is angry with Elijah, and she just wants to kill him. And he's been on the run for 40 days and 40 nights. He just wants to die. God keeps feeding him, keeps him going anyway, because God has bigger plans for Elijah than that. And he comes to this mountain. God sends him up to this mountain. And then when he gets to the top of the mountain, there is this great wind. And the wind is so great that it's the kind of wind that can cut mountains in two, if you can imagine a wind like that. In fact, it says the mountains are rent at this wind, and the rocks are split at this wind. And you would think, okay, here comes God, but God's not in the wind. And then after the wind, there is an earthquake. The ground shakes beneath Elijah's feet. And you think, okay, here it comes now. This is God. God's not in the earthquake. And then there's fire. Same thing. Here comes God. God's not in the fire. After all of that's done, when you think it's all over and you've missed him, God comes, it says, in this tiny, tiny voice. Just like a whisper. And Elijah's been waiting for him because he's been afraid. And that's how God comes to reveal to him how he's going to save Elijah and use him to move his people. You see, the most powerful experiences in life come in such small ways that if we don't sit up, take notice, we're just bound to miss them. Let's sing. So how many of you know that hymn? Okay, I figured it wouldn't be many. You can blame this on the Norwegians in the crowd. This is a very, very old Norwegian hymn, and it's sung at used to be sung at every Norwegian, right? Used to be sung at every Norwegian funeral. In fact, my dear professor, Gracia Grindal, she always liked to say that a good Norwegian didn't know he was dead until they'd heard "Behold the Host." But you Swedes don't know anything about that, I don't suppose. So anyway, I love the hymn, and read the words, because it's all about the lesson that Betty just read to you, and the multitude that's gathered around the throne. And I'm going to get to that in just a minute, but I'd like to tell you story number 2 now. So it's pheasant season again, and I'm reminded of a place that I used to hunt, but I don't anymore because I no longer have permission on that land. It's down in Humboldt County. It's a farm piece of ground that it's on these rolling hills with a little creek down in the bottom. And there's farm ground all around, and there's this wide sort of fence line on the north side, wider than most fence lines, maybe about double or triple what you would normally get out of a fence line. And it's got this mix of brome grass and switchgrass, knee-high tall grass, maybe a little taller than that. And along one edge of that fence line is a very old fence. It's made of wooden posts that are set at regular intervals, and the wooden posts are weathered and they're cracked. This puppy's been there for a long, long time, probably as long as the land's been farmed. And then in between each post is this rickrack of rusty old fencing. It's this heavy gauge wire, pieces of wire that wrapped one over the next, and they form these like 4 or 6 inch squares. And if you look at it closely, I like small things, as you know. You look at that closely, those little pieces of wire, and it almost looks like one piece of wire is holding on to the next. So hand over hand to create a square, square over square, fence post to fence post, down the hill, across the creek, up the ridge, off and away as far as the eye can see. That's it. And some of the fence you can see, some of it you can't because it's been tramped down by the years, but it's all held together and it's standing there against those harsh Iowa winters. And I tell you that story today because I think that's a picture of the church at its very best. Now, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I use that word church judiciously around here. I'm careful about the way I use it. I don't use it very often because there are so many misunderstood definitions of what the church is. So if I were to go out around town or even ask you folks, what is the church? You might have this idea that a church is a bunch of cathedrals, great big buildings that stand there as a testament to worldly power or religious power, if you will. And, there's a case for that, right? If I say the word church, some people think of church as being clergy and bishops and an institution with headquarters where they make all these religious decisions. When I say the word church, some people, they think about the church as a rule house. That's the most common one. I hear that all the time from my students at school. You say, what is Christianity? And the first thing out of their mouth is Jesus, and the second thing out of their mouth are the 10 Commandments. And Jesus is there and he loves us, yeah, but the 10 Commandments are the real deal. So the church for them is a rule house. But I don't think the church is any of those things. And that's why I'm careful about the way I use that word. The church is instead expressed in the question in that lesson that Betty just read. Okay, so Betty reads this lesson. It's the book of Revelation, and I know when you hear the book of Revelation, it gets a little scary because there's lots of funky things going on. Don't worry, we'll go through it sometime. It's an amazing book. It's just filled with grace and hope and promise, and this is one of those lessons. So John sees this vision. He's the writer of the book of Revelations. He sees this vision, and he sees all of these people. It says there's a multitude of people that no one can number, and they're from every tribe and every nation, and they're all in white robes, and they're holding palm branches. And at the center of this is a lamb, who is Jesus. And he is holding a scroll. The scroll is rolled up and it has 7 seals on it, and inside the scroll is God's plan for our salvation. 6 of the seals are broken, 1 seal is left to be unbroken, and all of these numerous people, multitude from all nations and all tribes, they're waiting, holding their palm branches with their white robes, waiting for Jesus, the Lamb, to break open the seal and reveal God's plan for them. And then someone in the middle of this vision asked John, who are these in white robes and where did they come from? The answer to that question is the definition of the church. It's a fence. A fence of people. It's a fence that starts 2,000 years ago with a man by the name of Jesus, who is God's son, but he comes to this earth as a human among humans. And he does several things. He gathers people around him, and he gathers around them because he loves them and he cares for them and he shows them a better way for their lives. And he so loves them and he so cares about them and he so touches their lives and so changes their lives that they are never again the same. And then Jesus dies. He leaves this earth. And these people, these followers who have been touched and changed by the love of Jesus, have children. And they are so touched and changed by Jesus that they tell the story of Jesus. They share his love. They tell and they show. And those children are touched and changed by the life of a man they've never met. Right? And then they have children. You see where this is going? It's a fence, right? They have children, and the parents of those children have been so touched and so changed by the love and the story of Jesus that they share this story with their children, and they tell this story to their children, and those children have been touched and changed, and down through the centuries, generation after generation, have loved their children so much and loved Jesus so much and have been so touched and so changed by the love of Jesus that they just keep sharing it. One generation to the next, hand over hand, wire over wire, until it comes to this time, this place, this very room. Here's the interesting part. Most of those people were not the engineers to build great cathedrals. They were not eloquent speakers. They were not learned scholars. They were not bishops. They were not pastors. You think about the people who most influenced your life and brought the message of Jesus, the love of Jesus in a real and visceral way. You think about who those people are. You name them in your head. Some of you are here today because you knew it was All Saints Sunday, and those people are important to you. Not just because they love you. They did love you. But God used that love to share with you the message of Jesus. That's the church. A succession of ordinary people who have been touched and changed by the love of Jesus, so much so that they care about the people who are beneath them, and they share that love, and they tell that love, and God uses it to pass it along to the next generation. And you think, love, so small, so insignificant. What about pastors and bishops and church institutions and cathedrals and all that sort of stuff? If you're looking at that, you're pulling a Luke Skywalker. All right? You're missing the Milky Way. Because God uses the simple love of the people in your life to reach your heart. And it is more powerful and more profound than the grandest and greatest display of power in the world. Who is the church? It's a nation that no one can number, from every tribe, from every people, holding palm branches, using their lives to sing to you the love of the Lord Jesus. Let's sing. So today, we've really got two jobs here left to do today. The first job is just simply to remember. And I want you to think back, and I want you to remember all of those people who are the reason why you are here, sitting here today, why you're out there listening. And maybe there's some of you that are out there listening, you have no one that's brought you to this place. Maybe you're just checking it out for the first time. And if you are, this is the beginning of an amazing journey, a place where the love of God comes into your life and it makes sense of your entire world. For some of you, it will be relatives. For me, it's my parents, it's my grandparents. I had a Sunday school teacher in 4th grade who was a guy back in the 70s. That didn't happen. 4th grade Sunday school teacher. Leonard insisted that we memorize the 23rd Psalm. And of course, that was in a day when you didn't ask, why do we have to memorize this? But he offered it up anyway. He said, you need to memorize this. We're going to see to it that you do this year. So that when times get rough, the words of the shepherd will be on your lips. To this day, I remember that. He cared about me and loved me so much that he saw to it that I had the tools to get through whatever trial in life I would face, simply by insisting that I learn a few Bible verses. I can tell you that story, and I look in your eyes, and I know each of you have stories just like that. And yeah, they might be pastors. And by the way, I've been having this little running deal with Sandy Peterson. You know, we've got the wall of fame over here with all the pastors that are lined up. They're not up there right now. I keep saying, Sandy, let's just take it down. And Sandy says, no, it's got to be up there. Somebody made the rails. And you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a bunch of pictures of Sunday school teachers and kids. And I'd love to see that in there. I'm going to get you yet, Sandy. I would love to see that because, you know, yeah, pastors are important, no doubt about it. I mean, we're here, you're hearing a message. Hopefully it's a message that touches your life. But there are people that are way more important people that brought you here. Way more important. So we need to remember who those people are because they're the ones who got us here. And then the other thing, and this is equally important to do today, is we need to think about the future. We need to think about the people who are in our lives that are under our care and the people who are not in our lives but should be under our care. And let me just give you a couple of examples of the second one. So a couple weeks ago, I had Judy and somebody else, I don't remember who, said we've got Meals on Wheels on the month of November. So here's the bucket. We need to feed these people. Help yourself. And you know, you take them a meal. It's from First Lutheran. They know why you're coming. It's not the Rotary Club. Nothing wrong with the Rotary Club. It's not Kiwanis. Nothing wrong with Kiwanis. We're here for a different reason, and people know that. And we have Sunday school kids in here on Wednesday night. We have people who are in the hospital, people who are lost, people who are alone, people who are facing illness. And we think they're covered. But you know, it's amazing what a text message does. It's all you have to do. Pop off a quick text to someone you know is facing something big. A little later this month, we've been talking about pairing up with Bertha Godfrey, and the first of these events is happening. So Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, we're going to be providing a Thanksgiving meal for Sarah, what's Sarah's last name? Huh? Sarah Curtis's 3-year-old class. The whole Thanksgiving meal. And so that's 4 sections. There's 15 kids, 17 kids in each section. They can do all 4 sections with one bird because, I mean, it's 3-year-olds, right? And we're going to feed them. We're going to be around them. We're going to serve them. And they're going to know why we're there. And we don't even have to say Jesus. But they know that the love of Jesus is what brought us there. And then we're going to start building some relationships with some of these kids, some of whom really don't have great positive influences in their lives. I mean, I was lucky. I had parents and grandparents that not only cared about me, but cared that I got to know the message of Jesus. Not everybody has that. And so we need to think today about where we've been and who brought us to this place. Because those are the wires and the squares of that endless fence of Jesus' love. And then I want you to consider where your hand is going to reach and grab a new wire and form a new square so that the love of God will extend out and away and as far as the eye can see. Amen.